When designing something as intricate and complex as a model layout, it is a good idea to plan out how it will be designed and executed. You must decide where it's going to be, what it will be built on and made out of, how much space it will take up, what its theme will be, and so on and so forth. It's good to figure out the design specifications of your layout ahead of time so that it is less likely for you to make any construction commitments you might regret and aren't able to easily revert in the future. And so, in the early stages of this journey, we are now going to go over the alpha beta version of the grand concept for the fictional Midwestern Railroad. So let's begin. The FMR will be a prototypical model railroad, meaning whatever you see on the layout is intended to be an accurate scaled-down version of what can be encountered in real life or could have been seen historically. To narrow it down, the timeline begins in 1993 and at the very least goes all the way up to 2020. This means that whatever railroads were in service and whichever locomotives they were using within this time frame will be used on this layout. That means that not only will we be seeing modern GEVO ES44s, but we will also be seeing older Dash 9s and some narrow nose engines like the C40 and C42-8s, SD40-2s, GP35s, and GP38s. High nose engines like the SD18s and GP9s, and even some F units like the EMD F7. If it has been seen on the rails from 1993 to 2020, there is potential for it to be on the layout. The good news is that we also get to enjoy seeing road names that have been swallowed up by mergers, such as Santa Fe, Burlington Northern, Southern Pacific, and Chicago and Northwestern, just to name a few. So now that you've got a good idea of what kinds of trains you can expect to see on the layout, what locations are we basing the layout off of? Well, since the layout will be using O-Scale Atlas Track for its realistic appearance, I was able to use the Atlas Track Planner software to plan a first draft of the FMR. The layout will be divided into 5 sections to create the illusion of traveling over large distances. The first location is Escanaba, Michigan. I was inspired to include this location by a railfan video documenting the Chicago and Northwestern's iron ore operations there in 1992 and 1993. And for a little bit of extra history, Canadian National actually took over the territory after Union Pacific absorbed the CNW. But in 2017, the ore dock closed and the ore train stopped. Moving to the eastern side of the layout, we have a section inspired by Marshalltown, Iowa. The reason why I chose this location is because a railroad film I watched as a young boy imprinted in my mind memories of a hotshot semi-trailer train led by a Chicago and Northwestern Dash 9 and a Union Pacific Dash 9, so I had to include it. The memories of this location and train are so dear to me that I have included it on this layout, and I have even ordered a Lionel Legacy Union Pacific Dash 9 to go with my CNW Dash 9 unit so that I can start building a replica of the train from the film. The next location is a mix of both Watkins and Annandale, Minnesota. Thanks to another railfan production, this location will be on the layout. All because of a clip in the said film that made me fall in love with the big red AC 4400 locomotives of Canadian Pacific. For the longest time, I thought they were Dash 9s, and it wasn't until I was much older that I realized they were, internally, slightly different. Up next is a location that I have been to personally, though not recently. The Wheaton College Avenue Metro Station in Illinois. The main reason why I was inspired to include this is because it is a location I have grown familiar with growing up. Whenever I'd visit family near Chicago, we'd likely end up at this station to do some rail fanning back before I was even a teenager, or sometimes to go to a baseball game. These tracks typically you'll only see Union Pacific freight trains and Metro commuter trains. Today, that is all you see, but I've decided that a few CNW trains won't hurt. The final location is the only one that can't truly be classified as Midwestern, but it is one I have personal experience with. The Puget Sound Refinery in Washington State. Here you'll see BNSF tanker trains going to and from the refinery. In my personal experience in real life, you'll see BNSF ES44s, SD60s, SD70s, but also some old Santa Fe and Burlington Northern locomotives as well. Due to the locations I have just described, the road names you can expect to see so far include Chicago and Northwestern, Union Pacific, Canadian Pacific, Metra, Santa Fe, Burlington Northern, and, of course, BNSF. As you can see, we've got a long ways to go. A lot of track to lay and a lot of trains to collect. But we're up to the challenge.